Hi, this is What the Cook Reads. This is part 4 of living with a parent, family member with Alzheimer's, dementia. Remember, I am not a medical professional.
All right, part 4 of living with a parent, family member, or friend with Alzheimer's and dementia. All right, so I left off with my mother. She had to removed from her home because she was having a lot of accidents. She was falling. She was calling us during the night erratically, just saying things that was abnormal. And so we made the decision to move her out of her home and to live with me. So that's a big experience in itself, from spending many years living by yourself to now having your mother in your home. So it's a little adjustment, but that's fine because that's my mom. One of the other reasons why we did decide to move her out, she had called one day saying that she couldn't get out of her home. She had locked herself in, didn't know where her keys were. By the time we got into the house to get her, she had fallen prior to the day that she actually called. She had a black eye. She was bruised, beat up. It was a whole mess. And so right then and there, we definitely removed her, took her to the hospital to get checkups to make sure that she was fine. And then we brought her over. Now, during this process, it's my sister and I, we're making sure that the home is ready for her, any things that she may need physically, to be able to access, and that she can have a comfortable way of life at her new location, because most parents don't want to live with their kids in the same frame. Most kids don't want their parents living with them, but it is what it is, and that is my mom. So she's living with me for a while. And one of the things you have to understand is that the disease, the Alzheimer's dementia, is eating away at their brains. And so you want to start capturing their voice. You want to start capturing those good times, having a long lasting opportunity to do intimate things, to, recap on things, ask questions that you may have had. You wanted questions answered for. And so one of the other things is that my mom is a great cook. She's from Itta Bena, Mississippi, from a long line of great soulful cooks. Unfortunately, I didn't inherit a lot of those traits. I am a great American Northerner cook, but some of the things that I had not mastered and I wanted, so I started documenting though. I had learned that from my great grandmother, to make sure I start writing down the recipes, not only capturing her voice and capturing moments, because those times when it's all said, like being able to capture their voice, some incidents and behaviors or some activities they used to do. And so I grabbed one of my notebooks that I had been taking notes from my great grandmother before she had passed, and some recipes she had given me. So I started asking her, like, hey, how do you make peach cobbler? And I'm writing down step by step. Or how do you make yams or sweet potatoes? Because I tried, failed many a time. So I was like, are you sure? I know you had some lemon in there. I know you had some cinnamon, and how much. And the one thing about Southern cooks, they don't really use measurements. And so I had to really go through the process of thinking about what I seen my great grandmother or my mother do when they were in the kitchen. So I'm like, is it like a cup or kind of like a cup? Is it a feel? Do you know? And so some of the recipes, as I began to write down the information, was like a feeling. Some of you guys understand, they don't use measurements, but it's perfect each and every time. My mom is a great, making caramel cakes and cinnamon buns and just making cakes in general. Anyone has ever had her food or her desserts will 100% agree. And so those are the things we start to capture. Not only that, you want to make sure you keep their minds active. So if that's crossword puzzles or fill in the blanks, Sudoku, if it's having them in the kitchen with you, like my mom, dexterity was kind of fading. So I would have her in there cutting up vegetables with me. I grabbed stuff out the garden and I would like, hey, what are we having for dinner? Okay, so you're responsible for, cutting this or making sure that this is done or making sure this is washed. You want to make sure that they are as actively engaged in things and make sure their brain is you're utilizing both hemispheres of their brain, and you also actually asking them to recall a lot of things. And so we'll have discussions. We're like, oh yeah, am I your favorite child? And I'm always saying, like, is my sister really my sister? Just things that have her laughing, have her thinking, have her, sharpness come back with her little comments and stuff. And as we went through those processes, those are things that became important because, again, their mental capacities are going to start to diminish. Not only that, my mom balance she was off balance, and so we had to get her a walker. So her getting used to a walker. Now, again, this is a person that was very self-sufficient, very strong. It was a person that's, I'm gonna do it my way, and taking the car keys from her was one big thing because she's riding up and down the street erratically, speeding, yelling things out the window, were very odd behaviors that we notice. Again, we're 2-3 years past the date of most medications being effective because, again, Black and brown communities are getting their diagnosis way after the onset of the particular disease. And so we'll be in the kitchen, we'll be cooking, we'll be talking about things that I'm growing because I'm a master gardener and I've been growing since birth. And so we'll talk about that, and I'll say, okay, mom, I'll have her like a test person. I'm making a dish and I'll have her to test it and say, what does it need? If it's a little too much of this or it needs more of that. And so those are the things we were interacting. One thing that my sister's very, very good with, making sure that she was seeking out resources, i.e., she found the daycare that took my mom. She wasn't walking by herself at this time. So again, we had to make sure that her walker was stable, in good condition, because she was falling a lot. We had to make sure that she was standing so many moments out of the day, that she was actually using her limbs and walking, that she was doing her exercises, being very small weights, her arms, lifting her arms, from working at Chrysler way back in the day when there was Jefferson, Dodge, Main, and all of those assembly plants that which she retired from. She was injured on the job. She was injured caused by the job, by just doing repetitive motions. And so her ability to lift her arm in some area was limited. So we still kept that in mind, but we wanted to make sure that she was lifting weights. We wanted to make sure it was not only just weights in her hand and her arms, but also her leg usage, doing kicks and as much as she could, like getting on and off of her bed. At this point in time, is a medical bed that we can, adjust the heights and stuff. And so making sure she could do that. At this point in time, she was going to the restroom, able to use the restroom. But again, getting out of the bed at night was a problem to relieve herself. And so we had to make a whole adjustment mentally, physically, emotionally, not just for my mom, but also for myself and an individual living in my home. And so just thinking that this is a person that provided for me, that now is my opportunity to do the same, is an emotional task in itself. So you have to mentally prepare yourself. That means now you have to look at, what are you doing? What activities are you doing? For me, when I leave the house, I didn't come back until nighttime. But now I had to consciously leave the house, come from work, come and check on my mom. Everybody knows me. I'm a workaholic. I'm always going to do something. So adjusting my life, adjusting my son's schedule to make sure that whoever we had in place or was not able to get there, is always someone there with my mom. And so we would keep Kirk Franklin. She loved Kirk Franklin. I was at my point of listening to Kirk Franklin. But she loved listening to him. She loved listening to the old gospel. She loved listening to our old bishop. She loved the preaching. She loved the old time singing. So we would keep the television on, the news on, so that, again, we're consciously making sure that she's utilizing her brain. And so we would go, and my sister researched there was a daycare, so my sister would make sure she was at the daycare where other seniors, her age, or in different forms of, it may have been Alzheimer's, it may have been dementia, it may have just been whatever, but they were able to interact. And so she developed friends there. Look forward to going there like 2 to 3 times a week if it was possible. The people at the daycare loved her. They were very amenable to her, very caring. And so just making sure that she had that activity. So that was the beginning stages of being there. So getting her comfortable, letting her exchange. She's still calling people. Like, thank God she has friends and family that stay up all night, because she's calling them 11, 12, 1 o'clock in the morning, and they're understanding the process of which this disease takes. But they're very amenable for her. And so, her friends and her family, she could call, they were talking on the phone. I'm like, Ma, it's 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. Now, mind you, I gave her my bedroom so I can make it just her as comfortable as possible. So I, set up in another area of the house, because again, you want to keep in mind that this person or your family member was there when you didn't even know that you were there. And so you always want to keep in mind the best times are the times when you can provide for somebody else. And so I'll go in there, because she'll be calling me, and it may be 2 in the morning. She's calling my name, and I'm like, oh my God, I got to go to work in the morning. But I started thinking about, I just did that with my son. And so now I have another child that's actually my mother, but I'm treating her in that aspect, but still giving her dignity and her respect, because that's what she's doing. She's needed. And so I would go and see, we're like, okay, so what we doing? No, I'm not up. No, I'm trying to get a couple of hours of sleep before I have to go into work. And so being mindful that they're transitioning backwards, like Benjamin Button, the growth is different, as is they're growing backwards. And so keeping that in mind helps you. The other thing I could suggest is get with a support group. You will not know until you say something to someone that there are other people your age that are going through the same thing, or they have gone through. I have run into so many people that I've interacted with. When I opened up and said what was going on personally within my home, they start saying, oh, my family member went through it, or my parent is going through this. Or they'll start saying, well, asking me questions. I always left it open for them. Well, my father is doing this, and my first word is get him checked once, twice, 3 times. Start the process of, the first steps of making sure that even if you questioning something that's going on, just give them a checklist or go down this checklist. Because not only are you looking at their mental deterioration, you also have to look at where they are physically and their health, because Alzheimer's dementia slides right into another and another and another occurrence medically. So you always want to be conscious of their behavior, their movements, and what's going on with them in their life. Ask any and everybody their question. Be free and honest and open to talk to individuals about this, because it takes a strong person to go year after year through this process, and knowing that at some point it goes from stage 1 to stage 2 to stage 3. I thank God presently my mom is at like stage 3, and she started reversal. It took looking at diet. It took making sure that she was cognitively aware and engaging with her, as if you were teaching a child their first steps in becoming a little person to a teenager to an adult. So just being very cognitive of the medication. Question the medication. Subtract medication. Do your research. Not every medicine is geared for you or your particular DNA makeup. It's okay to push back. It's okay to ask questions. Please do so, because if you don't, you may be causing more harm than help. So Hopefully this is helping you. I am going to come back with some more parts, but now I want you to absorb that. Go look at your loved one, go ask some questions and give them a hug, and know that there's love out there. I love you. There's love, there's support, there's community out there, and I'm just helping people because it's going to happen.
Remember, there is help out there, like the Alzheimer's Association 24/7 helpline at 800-272-3900. Michigan Alzheimer's and Dementia Support Groups. Dementia Society of America, just to name a few. There is someone there to help guide you through this process. Thank you at What the Cook Reese.